It's 2020, 2020 vision.
Energy, and that's what a big part of today is about not only sharing the book, yet inviting some people in to have some conversations. Purpose often is about being willing to go learn new things. That will lead you to often teaching. And most of us want to share, we want to teach. We have an underlying desire to make a difference in people's lives. Teaching is one of the greatest ways that we can do that. Some of you might say, well, I'm not qualified. I don't have a certificate. I don't have a degree. I don't have a PhD. Well, no. That's what's beautiful about teaching is you could teach people who haven't got the experience that you have. It's not about you being an expert before you start teaching. Starting to teach improves your level of mastery. And so in my book about mastery, it's about purpose, about you going and doing experiments so that you can learn and then to teach. Now, passion's got a different energy. Passion, I want to do this. I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about cooking. I'm passionate about rollerblading. I'm passionate. So there's an energy. There's more of a yang energy. It's more of an active energy. And so when you're in that active energy, I like to ask the question instead, because some people say they don't have a passion. I don't know what passion is. Well, what do you really like to do? What would you love to do in the next next 30 months, next year and a half? What would you love to do? Oh, I'd love to learn painting. Well, over my shoulder, I'd love to learn some painting too. In fact, when I visit Singapore next time, I plan to take a ceramic course with Dolly's good friend, Sue Quen. I'm interested in doing ceramics. I want to do some pottery. These are things that I'm willing to go and study and learn. And so, fantastic, Sherry. I'm glad. Purpose at the moment is helping cancer patients with cleaning their homes because that is beautiful. Going and doing decluttering. And so people's homes can become a nurturing environment. That is such a beautiful, beautiful passion right now. We did a interview last week with a lady from the States, and she has a whole business on helping people declutter and then monetize that value. She does it on the different platforms that she wrote a best-selling book on decluttering their home and actually making money from it. So if you want, Sherry, I can make a connection with that lovely lady. She was great on the program. Dolly, again, senior learning, fantastic. There's such a great opportunity for senior learning. And then we've got Mission Impossible, drama courses. That's great, Joanne. Again, Joanne, I think your drama is going to be great because you're such an articulate speaker, an articulate communicator. And so the GPS system, gratitude, purpose, passion, service, is in the book. And we're also working on an app, which is the True North Purpose Finder, which I'll be sharing a little bit later with wonderful artificial intelligence CEO, voice activation, Patricia Faith Martin. She'll be coming up at 10:30. Yet the next person I have to come up is going to be the co-host and founder of Pray Love. And I'll bring her in and let's have a chat about the vision of creativity. We might extend that a little bit to healing. So just stay with me. And thank you so much for adding purpose of hockey and helping and serving parents and kids to be able to get scholarships to go to the States. And hello, are you off mute? She is almost off mute. Hello, Deb Maybury. She is still on mute. There we go. Let's get you off mute. There we go. Nope, still on mute. Okay, this is beautiful thing, and folks, with technology.
There we go. Can you hear me
now?
There
we go. Hello.
Hey.
Great to see you.
Yeah, good morning. And listen, congratulations. I peeked in a little bit earlier and then stepped out and did what I needed to do. And now I'm back again. So
well, thank you so much. You gave us some wonderful tips on ways to reach out and to be able to share there's gaming, a little bit of gaming with creating a book launch and a bestseller. And I really appreciate your tips for that. It's been a crazy 3 weeks of deciding to play the game, yet really fantastic to connect with people. And again, thank you so much for joining us for a little section on the vision, because again, this idea of Get 2020 Vision has now rolled over into visionary creativity, visionary caring, visionary narrative. And so I've invited you to talk a little bit about creativity because, frankly, you're a very creative person who, again, has done so many creative things. Can you just share a little bit of the types of creative things you've done? Because you got a long list, yet I want people to hear it so that they see you in another context too as an incredible creative person in different areas. So please share a few things that you see are your creative outlets.
Sure. Well, I've had a number of them, and the thing is they have shifted over time. But as a child, I spent a lot of time alone, and I initially did a lot of drawing and painting, and I played the guitar as a teenager, so that took up a lot of time. And all of those things got put aside. I went to school. I became more creative in the area of sports. I was an official in women's ice hockey, primarily. I did some men, but I see that as being super creative. That ability, how to present yourself, how to see the game, that vision that we have, the meaning that we give that moment in time. And that was very creative. I did very well, very, very well at that. I refereed in the first Women's World Championship in 1990 as the only female head official. There were linesmen, but that was a really creative period of time in that way, and evolving that part of my mind and studying that and learning that art was very creative. And then, I went to school, I went psychology, and it just wasn't the time. All that artwork that I'd done as a kid, it just erupted in an opportunity. Got my first job. I got to be very creative, graphic arts. That turned into my partner at the time, and we bought a business. So I did artwork for years and years and years and years and years. And then it became, you know what? This isn't creative or fun. So what came up was going back to school, becoming a psychotherapist. And that is an art in of itself, how creative that is, and in your book, you use, a lot of the knowledge that you've gained over the years in your creativity and supporting and helping people, nurturing, holding that sacred space. That's a creation to do that. So I've been doing a lot of that. I have a CD that I created because I asked myself in 2015, what would I do if I had 6 months to live? The first thing was music. So I had gotten back to music in 2010, and that just erupted. When you've been suppressing an area of yourself that is yearning to be exposed, it gets inflamed inside and it becomes stress, anxiety, a lot of things. And when you allow it to flow, when you get in your groove, the music has not stopped for 10 years. I was playing my guitar yesterday, and all of a sudden, words. So you give it the vehicle and it comes up. So music, a few years ago, I also worked with another individual, created a short film, and that was panic creation because the people that she had hired to sort of create that storyboard faltered significantly. I stayed up one night. We had the shoot plan the next day, and in one night I created the entire storyboard, linking how the child was to the adult. So all that creativity, and anyways, it just goes on and on and on. The danger is during creative times where you're creating workshops, this, you're creating workshops, you're spreading yourself thin, you're doing so much. And one of the things that I've learned is it's really, you can play around in different things, but when you focus, or when you have a lot of things, you really need to focus. But you know what, Dave? I was going to school, right, to become a psychotherapist. I did the album and the movie all within a very short period of time.
So that's awesome, Deb. Thank you.
That's a lot.
Seriously. And what this is for people to hear a list of creative. Now, if you're watching right now and your mind goes to, oh, that's okay for her, she's creative. What would be some tips for people to, again, and Dolly's already said it a few times, just do it. Like, there are definitely beginner eyes to some of these. There's approaches that can be applied
For sure.
get 20/20 vision. We just want people to go and test it, experiment with it, play with it. These are words of a child. Be childlike with it. Any other sort of nuances or that you'd love to share with people that again, vision of creativity. Imagine yourself. I might use the word imagine, right? So what other tricks of the trade might you share with people?
The secret is that we all have the capacity to go far beyond where we think we can. And sometimes people are nurtured into creativity, and sometimes they're crushed into, you know, what the authority wants them to do or sees them doing. So it's really, I believe the first step is giving yourself the permission, like you did a short time ago with your drawing. And I don't know if you've spoken about that, but you give yourself permission to play. Everybody is born with creativity. It's either nurtured or suppressed in a lot of senses. So it's the fear, it's being shamed that puts that down. So the first thing that you have to do, like I said, is believe in yourself, not listen to those false beliefs all the time. And then there's creating the environment. And that's done in a couple different ways. Sometimes, or just being in tune. So I had a download for a song. There was an awful shooting in 2012, December, Sandy Hook shooting. You know, anybody who's in this area of the world heard about that. I went to sleep, and within 48 hours, I was awoken to write that song that I wrote called Where Do Angels Play? So that was a direct download, I believe, from, you know, the universe that holds all the wisdom, all the creativity, all the potential. So that's a download. The other thing you do is you create an environment. That can be an actual place. You know, you put some crystals over there, and, you know, you create that in the background. And then you go there. You can force yourself to go there every day. The alarm goes off, 7 in the morning, 10 at night, whenever it is. You plan and you go there. And you just do it. Whether or not there's creativity coming, you sit there and you write, you sit there and you meditate. Meditation is how Pray Love came to me. I was meditating up to 3 hours a day for a period of time, and that vision came to me. So you create that space and that energy, and also fill your world with things that have the vibration that you want. This includes the people. This includes, again, going out into nature. This includes reading maybe a biography from somebody that inspired you, you know, Gandhi or Martin Luther King, somebody like that. But just being around creativity activates some of those neurons in our creative center that will enable us to start to just flow. And whatever ideas come, don't listen. Comparison and expectation have beaten up so many people, and that judgment is a curse. So it's not going to be advantageous in any way, shape, or form. And it's just to allow yourself to be in that moment and just be open to whatever comes and passes through you.
I really want invite our friends who are watching right now is allowing creativity to come into your space and nature, and it's so liberating when you've been lugging around your whole life. Oh, I can't draw, and so far you suppress it. I can't sing, I can't dance, and it's just so tiring to just drag all those stories from the childhood. And it's just like, so I got to show my little one that I recently did, and it's just allowing this whole vortex of life to come up, right? And so I'm supposed to show it like that, but it's just allowing shapes and colors, and so I started coloring, and it's just been so liberating. And then I go into the park, and you start to see the sacred geometry everywhere, and you watch the animals, and then they start doing things like they're communicating with you. My mother's, who's 80 now, has honestly become a bird whisperer in the last 6 months. Her birds talk to her. We got a little budgie, and then we got a big one, and they talk to each other. It's like they've got bird music on. It's just absolutely crazy. We live in a loony bin right now, and it's so beautiful from a perspective of allowing us, the child in each of us, to come out and play.
Yeah, for sure. You know, that voice can haunt people. When I was a teenager, I was playing and I was singing, you know, in the closet bedroom, not letting anybody hear. And then I got a little courageous and I decided to, you know, take some lessons and start a band. And then a couple things happened, and that dream, because it was a dream, it got crushed. You know, oh, here it comes to mind. Have you ever had a dream and no one to believe? Have you ever had a dream that had no chance? You had your mind all set, just looking for a little respect. Have you ever had a dream that had no chance? I wrote that when I was 18, and that was about music, 18, 19 years old. See how that has stayed with me for that long, because that was a traumatic moment. And I put away my guitar for almost 25 years, 30 years because of that. And then I just decided, no. And that happens to so many people. Can you imagine if Walt Disney didn't, you know, stretch beyond his comfort zone, or Steve Jobs hadn't been completely different? You know, I mean, he's a little harsh. I've read the biography, but the thing is he had a dream, he had a vision, and he wasn't going to go off that line. I mean, and in that position, you know, fill yourself with other creative people, be in a creative environment, give people that drive. And I'm not saying I condone some of the things that he did, you know, in the movie, in the book, it was harsh, but he had that vision. Same like, you know, Bill Gates, Henry Ford, you know, all the great innovators. I mean, creativity is like, you know, the home place of innovation. And that doesn't mean that it's things that we typically think that are creative. They can be numbers. You're a numbers guy, right? That creativity.
Well, again, today we started off the session with a quote from Hillary Carter, the writer of the 1111 Code. And for me to even decide on making today happen, it started at 11:11 p.m. Auckland time, which is the morning sun. And me now as a yoga instructor, I got up at 5:55 and I did my sun salutation. And it just gives me goosebumps to be able to talk about numbers and to share it, yet also allow the divine messaging that I am creating the narrative on. And I think it's just so beautiful that I start with New Zealand, and then we move in, and we're going to finish today at 11:11 Toronto time, which has been so beautiful because we have our friends from Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia on the line. And we've got our friends from North America. And it's just such a beautiful thing that to share about the narrative, to empower people to change their narrative, to find ways to give, starting perhaps with themselves. And now you're sharing with creativity, which it's so funny because when I asked you, and thank you so much for joining me, it really is, I immediately went into creativity, yet then my fingers started tweaking a little bit, because I also love the fact that you and I are very curious about the creativity of healing.
Yeah.
And so I giggled a little bit. I said, am I going to throw that sort of ball to her? And I said, oh yeah, I will. Deb, I know, can knock it out of the park. So again,
Whatever.
I would really love that we're getting some nice feedback on people expressing creativity, and that's wonderful. And again, let's talk a little bit on creativity of healing and the way that, again, every single one of those that you talked about in creativity, I feel can be used in healing.
Absolutely, Dave. And I think it's really important. That's one of the things I didn't mention. I have it on my shelf here, right? We're talking about books. Well, you know, my book was released, Unlock the Door Beyond Sexual Abuse, in 2013. And you talk about creativity. Whoops, knocking over a mic here. Creativity and balancing that. And that came as a vision. And there's different ways or different definitions of a vision. You can have something that you create as a vision, forward thinking, like you, the 2020 vision. From, you know, when I met you, you were talking about the 2020 vision in 2008. Or you can have a vision where the vision literally opens up in your mind's eye, your third eye, from spirit or God or whatever you perceive that to be, universal intelligence. And that was the vision that I had for Unlock the Door. I had accomplished my goals for that year. It was in November. And I was saying, what is the purpose of all this? What is the purpose? Why am I doing all of these things, cycling across Canada and doing these trance dances? And all the crazy things that I was doing at the time. What is the purpose? And the vision came down, and it came in flashbacks of being violated as a child. And I had to jump out of bed eventually, and I went and I wrote that. And healing is such a critical part of the evolution of ourselves and of nature, the totality of it. That's what's happening in my mind in COVID right now, right? That's a healing of the planet and the cleansing of the mind, body, and spirit of ourselves and of the planet. So I'll give you an example, Dave. So yesterday, so my private practice has really exploded lately. And I had somebody in here yesterday, and I use a combination of modalities in working with people. That is creativity. I don't stay on one line and, like something that's very popular, for example, cognitive behavioral. Everybody knows that therapy. That's very linear in my mind. Now, correct me, anybody who wants to, who's used that and utilized that and had a lot of success, because that does exist as well. But for me, when I'm with somebody, it's the intuition that comes in. It's the unspoken word. It's so much that evolves. And it's like every modality that I utilize is up in the air, and tuning into that and suggesting something to somebody that may not be typical psychotherapeutic narrative, right? Like, and having the courage to say that. And I know in your book, it's like you're suggesting a narrative that some people would say, like, what do you mean? Where's the gift in the loss of a child, for example? Something really devastating. What is the gift in being sexually violated as a child? How do you come to that point? That's a creative process. Is it not?
Absolutely.
Like,
I actually, you're absolutely right. Like, if you get stuck in a narrative that you're a victim of it and you stay in that narrative your whole life, it can be very sticky, and it's like being in a pit. So the creativity is, and again, people will do it. They'll create imaginary friends. They'll create imaginary conversations. They'll create imaginary connections. They will shift the narrative, and that does take a creativity. And who decides to make something that is tragic and make it into something that is truly a gift? It's magical that we can learn about compassion. We can learn about forgiveness. We can learn about love. We can learn about honoring from things that are horrendous. Yet when you have the experience of meeting some of these people who've done it, again, that's one of the reasons why I believe I love storytelling and encouraging people to share their story, because it can be uplifting, it can be encouraging, it can be inspirational. And I have a feeling, again, that's part of the community that we're connecting with, that we are seeing 2020 as a pivot point. And it's a pivot point to have these type of conversations, to allow people to be heard, to be healing as part of our daily journey, about gratitude, about meditation, about doing what nurtures our evolving being. And then also be an example of people that throw it out there, because we're growing. We want to, like, where are you taking me tomorrow? Like, that's outside of I haven't done that for 25 years. So, no.
That's funny. The three friends, we had it planned to go kayaking, right? And then it was like, okay, we have 24 hours and one of them can't go. She's ill right now, so she can't go. And she was just going to cancel. I'm like, well, wait a second here. Maybe we can get somebody else to go. And I put it out to 3 people right away. And you were the first one that said, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's figure it out. And how we get in there and what are we doing? And we'll have an amazing time. Right. The only downside of that is my sister then called me afterwards, said, I want to go. And we said, well, we'll come too, and then there weren't any more kayaks. And I'm like, well, but then, you can shut that off or roll with it. Okay. So that turns into, now we're going kayaking with her kids. So it all worked out so beautifully, but it's so important to have that narrative and not see it as the downside of it. And like, actually, you know what? Something just popped in my mind that you said a couple of minutes ago, was that that thought of not being alone. I have a client who said that yesterday. She's reading my book, Unlock the Door, actually. And she says, I never realized when I was going through all that I was going through, because the narrative is just this horrific scenario. I never realized that there were probably other people going through the same thing at the same time, because the brain goes into survival mode. So you want to fight, you want to flee, or you're going to freeze. And that's all it can do. And if that's not processed when that initially happens, then that can become the narrative throughout one's life, and you don't notice it. All of a sudden, you're experiencing a lot of anxiety, depression. You want to escape what it is, the job you have. You know, there's a lot that's playing on in the background, and we don't know that. One of the first things I say to my clients, whether they're coaching clients or psychotherapy clients, is take the next week and pay attention to your narrative. Let's identify who's actually talking in your head, and if it's a neighborhood that you would actually invite people into on an ongoing basis, you know, and how is that affecting your here and now, and what can we creatively come up with to, you know, we're not taught how to think. And I say this to them, we're not taught how to, can you imagine? That's the thing we do constantly all the time. Either the conscious mind or the subconscious mind is always a processing. It's the greatest processor there is on this planet. And yet we're not taught that we actually can choose our thoughts. We can choose our perception, our intentions. We choose the meaning we give things. It's like just automatic. It's like it's all dumped in when we're very, very young. And then people don't even realize that they have the capacity to shift.
Absolutely. I guess that's what's fantastic, that we have the opportunity to have some conversations that we're able to say it without the attack, because today it seems that a lot of people, just by saying something, they're getting attacked. Yet in the creative phase, that saying it, that doing it is part of the expression, and it's part of the evolution. It's part of the process that is so important. Yet in many ways, so many young ones are being shut down for even speaking it. And so, wow, I love what we are looking to do is, let's say it and get some feedback. And how does this resonate with you? What do you hear when I say that? These sacred communication circles are things that I'm very excited about the possibility of exploring that on a wider basis, where we really do orchestrate safe space. We orchestrate sacred space. We orchestrate the opportunity to allow people to sing a song or do a chant or do a dance or express themselves in modalities that just enliven and enlighten the soul, spirit, and mind.
You know, Dave, in saying that, and if you think about your book, okay, so I want to put some light on your book, and I'm sure you've talked about different aspects about it, but where does that book come into play in terms of somebody that is struggling a little bit right now? So how could they utilize that book? And I'm talking about, they don't have right now the capacity to read it all.
Correct.
So how could they navigate parts of your book and have a sort of mind shift or a new awareness?
Deb, thanks you. That's a great question. And actually, I should probably take a commercial interruption. If you haven't seen the book yet, check out 2020vision.net and get your edition of it today for 99 cents. What's been fantastic about it, because it's been an experience for me. And yes, I am encouraging everyone to go get a copy of it today. That'd be really great.
Yes, please buy the book. Here's my advertisement. Is that I know in Canada, it cost me $1.34 this morning to buy it. And if you're thinking later, well, let's all buy it now, because what happens is when it's bought over a shorter period of time, then Dave could actually become an Amazon bestseller. But it's important that we get as many people as possible. And even if you have some friends or family members there that can get another one from another device, because I think you can only buy one from each device. Otherwise, you know, I would have bought 20 of them and help with the sales. But encourage people to buy them. And the things is, it's, you know, I haven't read it all, but I certainly scanned through it before coming on. And oh, and as a cardinal just landed outside, Dave. So, okay, there's a sign.
Thank you, Cardinal.
If you can go and buy it right now, we really super would appreciate that. And Dave's done a lot of work on this book and this new revision to support and help people maybe that are a little bit struggling or looking for some new creative ways to explore what they're going through. So please go ahead. It is a good book, and it would really help Dave if Dave has been a part of your life. Just help him in this time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Deb. What has happened is a lot of the content has been evolving from a chapter in the book. So I did a little chapter on grief. Yet then what's happened is I had 5, 6 friends who had beloveds pass over in the last 3 months. And so my response was to go reach out to them and ask them if I could interview them. And so I ended up doing interviews of their grieving process of their beloveds passing over. And so now we have about 5 hours of content on dealing with grief. Yet then what happened deeper is I came up with this idea of shift your belief about grief. And so then I created a video, a 6-minute video that takes a person through the process of grief. So now they can go onto YouTube. And now I'm going to take it to the next level, is that we can actually go through the process, shift your belief about grief, and it can be offered as a workshop. It can be offered as a 1-hour lecture. It can be a podcast. And Indonesia called me up, and lovely and talented Pune. So I'll be speaking to Indo-Indians about that in Indonesia next week. 3 weeks ago, because I've been talking about grief, my dear friend Kani, who I think is on the line, she set up with the South African Travel Association. So I did a session on depression and isolation there. And then, of course, the lovely and talented Dolly contacted me from Singapore to create a seniors talk.
Oh, nice.
So right now, there is this opportunity to do a little module. It could be up to an hour or 40 minutes, Q&A. Yet I really brought it into a 6-minute module, one on grief, shift your belief about grief. I actually, for the first time in a long time, I actually bought the GoDaddy site, because I do believe there's a lot of mileage in shift your belief about grief. And the process I take somebody through that takes less than 10, 15 minutes. It starts off with shift your belief about grief. We got denial as the first in the Kubler-Ross method, right? So in grief, there's denial, and then there's anger, and then there's bargaining, and then depression, and then often back to one of those, finally to acceptance. I take denial and get grief, and I put RIEF against the cycle. Yet my first point to work with somebody is, can we find something to be grateful for? And as you know, if somebody can find some gratitude in wherever they're at that time, that can often be the shift in the belief. Gratitude is an amazing initial shifter for many people. And that might be all it takes to shift their belief about grief or the situation. And then again, a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper. Yet some people might not need deeper. And so that is one example of going deeper for me into each of the chapters of the book, because the other one was GPS system. So I've got a 2-minute video on gratitude, purpose, passion, and service. It's an interactive session that can be done. It can be done in a workshop. It could be a half-day workshop when you work deeper with people on those areas. And then there was the invitation to make it into a audiobook, which again, I went out to experiment and played and talked to about 4 or 5 people. It just hasn't unfolded yet. Yet I pass it out to the universe today. Is that someone wants to collaborate on the audiobook? We'll look to make that happen. So there is a lot of content in there, because I believe that 9 out of the 10 of the biggest stress points have been experienced by me personally. So I've talked a little bit about the pits that I've gone through. The pit word, by the way, is from Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, which again is a beautiful metaphor that most mythology has been written about. And Joseph Campbell so elegantly talks about it, about going from the known to the unknown, the pits, the perils, the problems, getting stuck. And then when we liberate ourselves, we come out with a special gift. That gift, as you know, it might be compassion. It might be curiosity. It might be a new way of being creative to liberate song, art, music as an expression of creativity.
Yeah, just the ability to breathe when you're talking about grief sometimes,
Yes.
just to
Deb,
be grounded.
thank you so very much. I really appreciate your time, your energy today. Thank you so much for coming to help celebrate the Get 2020 vision and to add your wonderful wisdom. I really appreciate you and your time and look forward to lots of magical experiences that are yet to unfold.
Oh, and thank you for inviting me on and switching to 9 o'clock as opposed to 7 o'clock. And I'll see you soon, and all the best, and continue to do that the great work that you do. And I will see you really soon.
All right. Have a great night.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Wow. Deb, and the journey with Deb over the last 12, 13 years has absolutely been incredible. And I look forward to introducing and sharing more with her over the years to come. So if you've got some great questions for Deb, please feel free to
What you should have done, but hindsight is 20.